Hi everyone, welcome to the latest episode of India FinTech Diaries. I'm your co-host Elroy, and this is a show where we discuss the latest trends in Indian FinTech, speak to some amazing guests from the industry, and deep dive into specific FinTech themes. Hemant, it's been quite some time since we had our last episode.
Yes, Elroy. I think Elroy, our audience and listeners also understand that this has been a very, very difficult time for the world and India in particular. And we as a group have also not been remained untouched, right? Both me and my wife contracted COVID-19, were home quarantined for some time, and it's been a very, very difficult journey since then.
I hope we are all fine now.
Yeah, absolutely. We are all fine now and ready to go. So we are back on the show now. And in fact, we are going to start recording episodes. And just to make it up to our listeners, I think let's release more episodes at a higher frequency as we go along.
Excellent, Hemant. And on that note, let's get into our latest episode. In today's episode, we continue on a journey to understand how fintech works and impacts Bharat. One of the most important enablers of upward mobility in society is the access to affordable education. A recent survey conducted by the National Statistics Organization of India revealed that only 10.6% of the Indian population aged above 15 years had successfully completed a graduate degree. This proportion was even smaller, only about 5.7% in rural India. Affordability of quality education is one of the drivers for these low numbers. To discuss the very important issue of affordable education, we have with us today Varun Chopra, CEO and co-founder of Eduvance Financing Private Limited. Welcome to India FinTech Diaries, Varun.
Hi, Roy. Thanks for having me here.
Varun, we are really happy having you here. But first of all, before we start, I think congratulations are in order for your venture debt raise a few months ago. Varun, Enduvance is indeed a pioneer in the affordable lending space with its innovative Study Now, Pay Later offerings, smartly named. Let's start with a quick introduction of yourself and the company.
Sure, happy to do that, Hemant. Hi, everybody. I'm Varun Chopra. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Eduvance Financing Private Limited. Quick background about myself. I'm a computer engineer, MBA ex IIT Madras. I've been an investment banker majority of my life. I've worked in organizations like Deutsche Bank, Nomura. After 14 years, kind of working in these banks, wanted to set up a own company solving the largest problem I felt that India is facing in current situation, which was giving access to finance for people who want to complete their educations. We started our journey basically in 2014. Me and one of my co-founders, Rahil, who was a dear friend of mine, we started our first company called Curriculum at that point together. The product the Curriculum had was to enable people build skill outside academics. This is something that started with my own problem statement, as a lot of people say that founders should try to solve a problem which they have seen in their life. Curriculum was actually a birth child of that, because very early on in my life, I wanted to be a tennis player. I used to play like 12, 14 hours a day, and I was doing really well. Till one point in my life, my father approached me and said, "Hey, I don't think you can build a career, out of tennis.
Hmm.
So you need to go back and focus on your studies." And so while you listen to what your parents said, and you're too young sometimes to realize the difference between building a career or playing for fun, I think that's where there was no guidance for me. And I left playing tennis abruptly and started focusing on studies. And you follow the chart that was very popular at that time. You do your computer engineering, you do your MBA, and you get employed. That's what I did. But somewhere as you grow up, you realize that there's a big part of your life you haven't done justice to. And we set up Curriculum where the idea was we can help students, parents see careers outside academics of math, science, and enable those careers or skill set to be built in students. We ran that organization successfully for a year, but one of the challenges we faced at that time was that parents kept telling us that, hey, what, your courses are good, but we are not able to fund these courses on our own. They were sometimes these courses were in the range of 40,000 to 60,000 rupees a year, and constantly parents were saying, "Hey, why is nobody financing us for these loans when I can buy a laptop on a loan or a mobile phone on a loan? Why can't I finance this kind of an education? For me, it might not be an education related to school or college, but it is still a skill that I'm building from from on in my child." And that's where we just realized that in India, the whole education lending market has been set up around study abroad loans. So if you want to go outside India, do a course which starts from 50, 60 lakh rupees and goes in couple of crores, your parents will put their house as a collateral, and you will get a loan which you will get 10 years period to repay back. this industry, kind of everybody's focusing on, from banks to big, NBFCs that have been set up, have been totally focusing on this industry. But the minute you look at somebody trying to do, educations in India, in schools for skilling and upskilling courses, courses that are related or generating employments, they become, it becomes very difficult to raise loan for that. And the reason for that is simple, that, for lenders, these are small ticket loans. They don't
Yeah.
understand, it becomes a personal loan. And the minute it becomes a personal loan, you look at a credit profile of a borrower, their, banking statements, their previous financial statements, and only a set qualified borrowers get through this chain. And when they get a loan, they are very expensive loans. And that's the problem, in Eduvance we are trying to solve today. So Eduvance in last 4 years has become the preferred choice of lender for learners. And that's what we want to be known as. We are the lender for learners. So if you are, or you have a family member who's studying, as young as 4 or 5 year old kid, trying to get into preschool education, to getting into school education, then, doing your coaching classes, then getting into your, undergrad, postgrad degree, you get employed, or you do a skilling and upskilling courses, Eduvance finances all that. And that's where, our differentiation comes in the market.
Those are some very interesting points you brought up, Varun. Going by my own experience and looking at some of the recent surveys that were done by the NSO, right? One of the things that they pointed out is that the average annual expense of graduate courses or skill-based courses typically range from 10,000 to about 20,000 a year for normal courses, while technical courses went up to 70,000 a year. Of course, for more premium institutes, this number could be as high, much higher, maybe 2 or 3 times that, right? While at the same time, if you look at income data, a substantial portion of self-employed, casual, or even regular workers earn less than 10,000 per month. So when you take these two statistics together, clearly seems that affordable education is out of the reach of a lot of folks in India. Now, you've been in the space since 2014, like you pointed out, right? Are you now seeing increasingly that credit as a means of actually funding education is becoming increasingly the way that most folks are looking at upskilling, reskilling, and looking at supporting education in India?
See, any industry that is going through growth will always need a financing partner to help them grow. We have seen
Yeah.
this trend across, you look at auto industry, you look at real estate industry. It's absolutely us, any industry on its own has found it difficult to get a lot of consumers in and
Right.
buying their product. So I think this is the time where education has taken a lot of importance. In India, education has always been important, but we have been very focused on getting, our 10th, 12th pass and going to IIT, IIMs. And that's all education has
Right.
meant to us. Indian parents, have now started, and even the consumers or the children have started looking at: is it important for me to do an MBA, or do I become a very focused learner in a particular sector, like data science or AI/ML or coding? And they want to build their career very early on in that space because of the kind of opportunities and exposures they get very early on. And this has resulted a kind of a change in which the financing sector needs to kind of be built around it. Traditionally, as we talked about, when you talk about the income gap, when you talk about
Yeah.
the salaries increasing limited, but the number of people or the course fee getting increased, there was always a challenge, because again, education loans were always high ticket loans, and you will
Yeah.
always find very few people who are eligible for that. And government came out with a lot of policies to support these individuals, but still the lenders were not very comfortable getting into these sectors. And we
Yeah.
have seen traditionally NPAs in 10%, 11% in higher education, which is phenomenally high, right? And I think the way it has changed now is, one, just look at the demographic profile of India. Close to 50% of India is going to be the age group of 5 to 24. That's close to 400, 500 million people we are talking about. And that's the time when everybody should ideally be associated with education in one or the other way. And when that happens, the expenses go up, because
Yeah.
today's student and their parents don't just want the child to do school. They want them to attend multiple coaching classes. They want to learn coding or these specialized coursing much earlier, and the expenses are going up. In fact, I was looking at some of the data, and we realized that the spend outside the classroom in India today is close to $70 billion. And that's a huge number. And this is only related to education. So anything that they
Right.
spend outside. And so there is a lot of demand for financial institutes to come up and help these individuals to learn. The way it has been changing now is very specifically that, if you look at some of the stats, typically for a skilling or a certification courses, they say in tier one developed countries, let me put
Yeah.
it this way, there is a penetration of around 80% and above of loans in a classroom. That means out of 100 students, 80 students have taken a loan to do those courses. As we go to some of the other countries, maybe like, Southeast Asian countries, or, some of the other, next level of countries, this penetration drops down to, close to 30%. In India, as you said, and we have looked at the data, this penetration is close to 7%. And that means there is a huge gap in terms of students applying for these courses, getting access to finance and getting enrolled, and ultimately learning and getting employed. So this impact is just not from the perspective of giving them finance to get a certification, but actually creating a workforce which is skilled and can contribute directly to your GDP and some of the sectors that are growing. So financing has become a very essential part of it. Now, how we are trying to tackle it via education, this problem statement has been simple. We looked at the products today that exist in the market, and we realized everybody is charging interest rates which are very high because the sector is going through their own challenges, and they're looking at only the set of borrowers who have very high credit bureau scores or have financial footprints. How do you get the sector, for example, or the people you talked about, people maybe who are underbanked or not banked, and or very limited footprints, how do you give them the loan? So Eduance, when we created the genesis saying, okay, we don't have to look at a borrower in a silo and say, is this person eligible for a credit loan? We have to look at what this person's past has been or education profile has been,
Right.
what this person is about to learn. And if that comes well, what is the income potential or the employment potential for this borrower? And we look at that, basically have a large chunk of borrowers who qualify for your lending products today. So we have something what we called as an employment risk, which is a major contributor of how we approve loans today. By employment risk, I mean is when we partner for loans, we partner with these education institutes. We look at what they are teaching, to whom they are teaching, how many students are dropping out of the courses, what are the employment they are generating, what kind of salary students are getting, who is hiring them, what is the overall profile of the institute and the sector they are in. And when a borrower comes into this picture, we look at, says, okay, you are a perfect student and this institute will get you a job because of your background for this much
Right.
salary. So you should qualify for a loan, and I will look at your future income and give you a loan today, which not many people are doing. And that becomes a very key distinct factor of why, new age lender or fintech players you would like to call, while we are an NBFC, we are more of a digital lender. But there is a key differentiation of how we lend, and traditionally lending has been done in this space.
Those are very interesting points you brought up. And I think it's good you brought up the fact that there's this very distinct difference between how traditional lenders approach this space, as well as how new age lenders such as yours approach this space. I'm just curious, what might be some of the challenges as we move from urban India to tier 2 cities while actually trying to access or provide credit to folks in tier 2 cities?
See, one thing you have to understand is that big shift has happened in the way education is being done in India today. What we internally are saying, the education consumption in
Right.
India is transforming at a massive scale. Pandemic has only, kind of sped up the digitization of learning in India. Today, you have edtech players with 10 million plus subscribers. Some of the biggest unicorns that have been created in India are in the edtech space, because there are consumers in tier 2, tier 3 who suddenly realize that I don't have to spend a lot of money in hostels and travel and my food and accommodation, or leave my job to do my learning. I can actually use my phone and get access to some of the top edtech partners or colleges who are moving from classroom learnings to online learning, and still learn from the comfort of my home no matter where I am. And that has shifted the way people have started looking at education, and it is becoming more. And because the education is becoming online, more and more students are getting access. So earlier you would put 30 students in a class, but now you can run multiple online batches, and if it's a pre-recorded course, millions of students at the same time can get access to that course. Now when that happens, the penetration of the quality education starts going deeper in India. So instead of limiting to 300 students, let's assume in an IIT, if IIT tomorrow goes online, you can have 3,000 students maybe.
Right.
And that's what is happening. And now when you go deeper in this sector, what happens is that there are students who have always had potential to build that skill if the quality education was given to them. And that's where you have to build your entire lending products around. So for example, today 70% of our loans today are no cost loans, because we realize as we go deeper in India, tier 2, tier 3 cities, their ability to pay will only be limited. So first, you create a product that they can afford. So when we partner with these institutes, we put the cost of interest on these institutes, so the students can only pay the course fee over a period of time. So instead of, let's assume if your course is for 1 lakh, instead
Yeah.
of paying upfront to the institute, you will pay this 1 lakh rupees, let's assume over 24 months or 10 to 12 months, depending on what is your capability to pay or what the product that consumer, and there's no extra cost to it. Now, once you give that access to the product, the idea is that institute needs to find the right kind of students who will learn, build the skill, and get employed. And that's where, understanding an institute helps you. So when you go and deeper to the tier 2, tier 3 village, it's not about what kind of financial footprints they have had, but what kind of capability or skill they will possess after learning. That you can easily map out looking at the dropout ratios of the institutes, what kind of penetrations or classes they are learning from a particular demographic sector, how many of them are regularly attending those classes, or people not quitting this, maybe, or skipping the classes. So all these data points become essential for you to look at. And when you look at it, your ability to lend to quality students with quality backgrounds become much higher, rather than saying, okay, because you don't have a bank account or a higher fire, I won't lend it to you.
Varun, I think this actually mirrors some of the newer models we're seeing in the West as far as funding education is concerned. Like, for example, a couple of lenders in the US started offering loans that were tied to your future earnings, where you would repay, say, a percentage of your future earnings every month.
Absolutely. So they are essentially called income share agreements.
Yeah.
Right? ISA, which is a model that is gaining popularity in India also, where essentially a training partner says, I will train you and I'll get you a guaranteed job for this much salary. And
Yeah.
once I get you a job, you have to repay me back my fee. Now, the way the lending partners are helping them is most of these ISAs are not essentially lenders, so they don't have access
Right.
to capitals. And two, they don't have an ability to recover. What if a student just doesn't want to pay you back because it's not a loan? Your CIBIL or bureau scores don't get impacted, and people can take it lightly if they want. So we are partnering today with ISAs, and we are saying that, okay, you're going to spend, let's assume your course fee is going to be 2 lakh rupees. I will
Yeah.
pay you 2 lakh rupees or deducted the discount upfront. And once you get a job to the student will have to pay to me. The way it helps is because students now have taken a loan, it helps them two front. One, a student who have no financial footprints or no, historical bureau score, they were new to credit, what we call.
Yeah.
When they take a loan and they start repaying it back, they start getting into the financial sector. So they create their digital footprints. These guys get the bureau score assigned to them. Tomorrow, if they repay back completely, these guys can get access to more loans. They can open up their accounts, blah, 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 very easily, because they would have a relationship with some financial institute, which would
Yeah.
have went well. And for institutes, because they don't have a burden of collecting, they have a burden of just focusing on quality education, and they can spend total time and energy and the capital they get upfront from the lenders on building that infrastructure. So we absolutely, you are right. This trend has started somewhere, outside India, and now, catching up in some of the sectors in India. The only thing we have to be a little cautious is our ability to place students. When you have a lot of income share agreements kind of institutes
Yeah.
start cropping up, if the quality of education or the placements suffer, this will impact directly on the students' ability to pay back, which will impact on financing partners. Look how they look at this sector will change.
I think now it's an excellent time to move the focus on Eduvance. Let's say I wanted to avail of credit from Eduvance to fund my graduate education or some upskill course that I was interested in. What's the process that I would follow? Talk us through the typical customer journey.
Sure. Started our product with a B2B2C flow, which means essentially Eduvance today tie up with an education institute and we create our product. So because you have to create these no cost loan, partnership with institutes become very important, because
Yeah.
somebody has to pay the cost of the interest. Once Eduvance partner these institutes, we do our due diligence, we underwrite them, we create a risk model around them and the sector. A product is created and agreed with these institute partner. In
Yeah.
most of the institute cases, we provide a technology integrated process to them. So for lack of better word, these institutes are given a simple API driven CRM, where if they are using their own CRM and the counselors of the institutes are talking to the child about the course and trying to enroll them, at the same time the same information can be fed into on our system, and on a real time basis they can get principal sanction on the loan of a student. Now that really helps institute, because the first call, which is the most crucial call for an institute counseling team when they're interacting with the potential student, they can actually say, hey, by the way, our lending partner Eduvance has approved your loan. So if you want, instead of paying us upfront, you're actually eligible of paying the same loan over 12 months or 24 months. Now, this tech integration process not just only creates a low cost loan, It
Yep.
helps students get clear clarity and a faster service. The same document they are using for their admission process can be used for, lending product as well, or getting a loan. So their life and journey becomes easy. They don't have to step out of the ecosystem of the institute and find a lending partner, negotiate on the cost, give documents, wait for the decision. All that pain goes away. The other journey what students typically takes when they take a loan from us is they come to our platform, our app, or our website, or call our customer care segment. They automatically get a message on their WhatsApp, email, and SMS. They click a loan, and the journey is purely digital, which means come on our platform, answer a few questions about yourself. We give you an access, if select the loan course that you want to do a loan. If you have not partnered, you can still apply for loans, and we give those loans to you. So you write about which institute, which you course are doing. Once your loan is approved, you click a picture of yourself, you do your digital KYC, and the information that we ask today is very limited, Alon. So if you have any financial background, all you have to do is give your CKYC number or give your PAN card, and we pull everything about you. So your address, your PAN cards, your Aadhaar cards. If you have ever submitted to any of the banks, they all digitally get fetched. So for a consumer, it's basically few clicks, clicking a photo, checking my documents are all okay. Otherwise, just quickly uploading, doing a digital KYC, and signing an eNACH. This process typically take less than 8 minutes or less for a loans to get ready for disbursal on an app. And this is the way, you build in a revolutionary change in the education lending. So consumers who were used to buying products on Amazon or going to Chroma stores and just swiping the card and doing, that's the same model we are trying to replicate in education sector today.
Very interesting, Varun. And it now that we have a clear understanding of the need of a product similar to Eduvance, which India has, and you also spoke about that the product is available to a very very young kid who is just entering school to someone who is upskilling themselves. It would be very interesting, Varun, to understand from you the different products that you have and the distribution that those products will have between, say, an urban India and the Bharat, and what is most popular in those segments. If you can paint a picture for us on that.
No, absolutely. See, the kind of products today we have is, we started our journey with skilling and upskilling loan. For skilling, how we define skilling is, think about a student who is an undergrad or last year of MBA or last year, couple of years of engineering, and maybe not from a very top college, may feel that I might not be able to get a job just out of my institute. So I need to
Right.
learn additional skill and do a certification. They're what we call skilling loans, where a student is still studying, does a course for certification outside college. These courses are typically in the range of 50,000 to 1.5 lakh, and we finance those courses. Upskilling is, think about individuals who are working professionals who might want to change their job, change their industry, or upskill themselves for better pay scale or promotion, and they do courses in data science and AIML, digital marketing, and some of the other industries. And the idea is, okay, I will become only better in my employment career. These courses start from 1.5 lakh and can go up to 10, 15 lakhs today. So these are the two products we started our journey with financing. But we realized that once you finance a child, maybe who's in college, there is always a son or a daughter in the same family who's in a school. So parents started coming to us and saying, hey, can you finance that? And we realized there's a huge untapped market in this segment as well. So we started creating product for K-12 education, where child is in the school, can also get finance. And again, the philosophy of here underwriting is looking at this quality of the school, getting some data on the background of parents' past performance and things like that, so that it makes only, what we call in K-12 segment is a one-click loan or pre-approved loans. This is what we finance, but we have recently tied up, and because of the pandemic, students started looking for digital equipment like laptops and mobile phone to complete their education. And we tied up with Apple today, and we are now tying up with some of the largest digital platforms to not only finance their course fee, but also give them equipments that they can buy as a bundled package while they are learning. So we are introducing what we call study now, pay later loans. This is essentially what the concept of BNPL exists at India today, where consumers are so used to, I go on Amazon or I go on Flipkart, I click a button, I buy a laptop and I pay later. So that's what they call BNPL. And we are introducing similarly what we call study now, pay later loans, where students can just decide that I want to do this, buy a laptop from the top market player and pick a course, complete their education and pay it over a period of time. That's the genesis. Now, the way we are seeing is, because, you talked about India and Bharat. Think about it. Now, institutes today, when they are getting digitized in India for the first time, Government of India came back with a UGC policy where universities are allowed to offer online diploma programs. Close to 41 million students do domestic education in India. These students today will have access to top college, and how colleges are broken into top 10, top 20 in India.
Right.
Yeah.
So not every student had access to a quality institute, but now with the UGC policy, all these students will be eligible to take courses or compete for across, doesn't matter which city they are into. These are the kind of penetration we are seeing in Bharat, where a student today is saying, okay, I am one of the earning members of my family. Earlier, if I had to do my MBA or a postgrad or undergrad, I had to leave my job and go to Delhi or some other city and learn. But today I can learn it online. And now when that starts happening, it's a shift in way the education is being consumed. And one of the important metrics Indian government tracks is GER, which is gross enrollment ratio. And that's the idea. This will now go through the roof. And as more and more students enroll for these school courses and UGPG courses, the education, the bare minimum education, which was earlier eighth and then moved to 10th, and with the new national education policy that came up, all this will supplement the penetration of quality education across in India. It will also put burden on institutes to build a high quality learning products, because students will have an option of on a click of a button to say why you want, why not the other person. So it will not just increase the penetration in deeper India or Bharat, it will also push edtech players to create consumers products which are in local language, varied across to the intelligence or the capability of the student and ability to customize for them. And that will just change the way education will get consumed in India over next probably a decade.
Understood, Varun. Looks like we are heading towards very, very exciting times. But Varun, typically, or like any lending business, the heart of it is always the credit decisioning. And you have touched upon few of the parameters that you look at, which actually differentiates you from a traditional lender. But we also spoke about that you are using artificial intelligence to make it stronger and make it more efficient. So if you could please double click on that particular element and help us understand how you're using AI for the credit decisioning model that you're using.
No, sure. One thing that I spoke earlier was that underwriting over here does not have to be driven by what is the past financial profile of the borrower on the parent is. It has to be, smart enough to understand the potential of what they will achieve after they do complete their education. So, for example, Hemant, let's talk about it. If today in our algorithm you apply for a loan, and I'm going to assume you have no medical background or medical education background, if you apply for a loan, for example, in a medical institute, our algorithm will realize that there is a high employability risk with this loan, because Hemant does not have a background in medical. And while he may go ahead and learn this course, but the chances of getting employed is after this course is very low. So his potential income will be close to zero. So you would have to look at his current earning model and take a decision. But if Hemant applies for a loan, let's assume in a voice artist kind of a institute where you are you can become an RJ, our algorithm will say even if Hemant does not have any CIBIL score or financial income, he's a perfect guy. He will get employed for this much salary in this much time. So you should lend and provide your loan to him and then let him complete his study. And that's where the key differentiation come in. When you look at traditional lending models, the minute you put in your PAN, they pull your bureau and they say, this is the CIBIL you have. I have a cutoff of 720. Anybody lesser than, nobody gets a loan from me. If I have to give a loan, the interest rate shoots up. In our model, what we say is I have understood the institute that you are going into and the industry you are going into. I have enough insight of what kind of students who are learning, who's dropping out, how much, who's getting placements, by when, sector by sector, time by time, how many of those students are repaying us back, with that, what kind of background. So your employability risk, which is an institute industry course rating, becomes very important. This also puts pressure on institutes to ensure that they are providing quality education, because if their rating goes down, the ability to get more borrowers in or students for loan goes down. Then what we have is your independent score of a borrower. So we do look at, for example, what we call as your mobile score. We tried, if you don't have a digital footprint, we will try to create your profile using, your social score, your SMS spending habit, where you're shopping, how you're shopping. If you are a young guy who just got employed, what kind of salaries you are getting. We will look at your demographic profile. This kind of consumer or this kind of a student, how they have behaved in past for this sector for us. From this pin code, how students are coming, how they have behaved. So a demographic profile. And definitely, if you are not new to credit, we look at your banking and bureau score to give more and more chance of you getting a loan from us. And this is how our underwriting works. So the accountability is not just on the borrower to be having a profile, but both on the industry to behave and the institute and their courses to be, high quality.
Very interesting. Now, Varun, let's zoom into the more recent times. I understand that you have had a phenomenal growth over the last year as the pandemic has hit. In fact, I think 3x growth in the amount that you have disbursed. Talk us through the story of how the causation is connected, how the pandemic impacted X and that has impacted Y, which has led to this growth. And what's your view on how this is going to shape up in the future, in the new future and the long term future as well?
No, you're in fact absolutely right. We are our month on month growth has been phenomenal. Last 12, 18 months or so, we have close to 10x AUM, which has been phenomenal. And even the disbursals have been monthly increasing, and that's one of the reasons have been simple, as I said. Hemant. The education getting digitized has only sped up. Three things. We looked at. One, we said, okay, there is a education consumption because it's changing. The tech players are coming in. Institutes who are only totally classroom driven are becoming online or hybrid, where students can do a part course on their websites or through online journey, and on weekends can come and attend classes or complete totally digitally. The second thing that happened was public policies. The government of India, launched these incredible UGC policies, national education policies. The focus came back on Skill India, where NSDC started driving a lot of these, institutes to launch new courses and started financing them. That, more and more players started coming into this quality education field. And the third thing that happened was private investments. Private investments, where thankfully a lot of these P firms or VC firms started seeing the potential India has in terms of young population and the need to get quality education, and they started financing some of these giants and some of the underdogs, as is known in the startup world, and they all started kind of creating unique products to impart education. When all these three changes happen suddenly, with pandemic in the middle of it, the edtech sector started moving very fast, and when that happens, financing became an urgent need. It's people who were being laid off, or people who are very uncertain about their jobs, whether they will hold on to or not, suddenly started saying, while I may have a capital, but if I can get a loan for no extra cost, why would I pay upfront? Parents who were earlier always made sure that child's education is a top priority, so I would keep my X rupees aside beginning of the year and pay, suddenly said, okay, I don't know how my job's going to look like. I have two kids who are going to schools, and that's like 1.5, 2 lakh rupees of expense. And there is a lending partner who's saying, I can pay 20,000 rupees a month. Let me do that. And I wouldn't pay upfront. So because of pandemic, uncertainty in the ecosystem, uncertainty around their own employment, salaries not getting increased or salaries getting withheld, people started moving towards education, which was earlier not very productively looked at. Taking a loan for education was a very, in Indian society was looked as a very good thing. Suddenly people started saying, hey, it's just another lending product and it's helping me manage my expenses better. There is no extra cost, and it just enables my child to learn more simultaneously because I can get them enrolled in 2 or 3 courses at a time. And that shift really drove our growth. So institutes started working very closely with us, provided us data, and they started sourcing quality candidates. And parents and the individuals started realizing the importance of paying over a period of time. And that all suddenly, we were the only guys who were at that time totally digitally set up. We started in 2016, so we were the first movers. And suddenly, with the NBFC license, we became the quality guys to go to.
Right.
And today, if you look at our team, absolutely incredible team with minimum 15, 20 years of experience with each individual. With Sukesh managing risk and Harsh managing collection and Rahel and Parth and myself and Vinayak. There's people started seeing that these guys are high quality individuals who understand the lending space, and they've created a product and tech integrated model which the consumer and the institute started loving. And suddenly we just we used growth as a propeller for us.
Absolutely, Varun. I think it is a fantastic product, company, and initiative. And just to tell you, in fact, I did a graduate degree, which was not my first preference because of financial inability to pay for it. And I don't think so that has changed over the many years. In fact, it has become worse. So if there are more students and they would like to get in touch with you or the organization and understand it better, how can they do that?
Oh, absolutely, guys. Just log on to www.eduance.com. Just drop us your contact details and we will reach out to you. We typically have less than 4 hours start. We'll try our best to shorten it for you guys. Any of the institutes you want to go to today, if you don't want to reach out to us, just ask your institute. You need to, get in touch with a lending partner. More or less, it's going to be us. If not, just ask for us directly, and we'll be happy to kind of provide any kind of financial support, and not just financial support. As I said, Hemant, we're creating a product called EduClarity, which provides mentorship service to students. So we are partnering with schools and colleges where we are not just financing these courses. We are telling these students, is this the right career path for you? We make them talk to industry experts. We tell them, okay, if they still feel they want to pursue that career or this is the right career choice, then we recommend them institutes and then we can finance their education. So the idea is not just to act as a lender, but actually a partner in your learning journey end to end. And for that, just a simple phone call or a drop in of a message will really help us reach out to you.
Thanks a ton, Varun, for taking the time to speak with us and shining some light on this very important topic of affordable education.
Perfect. Thank you so much for having me here, guys. Really appreciate it.
That's it from India FinTech Diaries for this week. Do keep an eye out on our brand new website, indiafintechdiaries.com, for exclusive companion content on topics discussed on the show. And until next time, stay safe.